Some battles with the HOA are about weeds in the lawn or the color of your mailbox. But when their so-called security guard pulled a gun on my daughter, they crossed a line no family should ever face. What he didn't realize, and what would change everything, was that my daughter wasn't just some ordinary woman. She was a highly trained FBI tactical commander. And the moment that gun came out, the entire game changed. This isn't just a story about corruption or control. It's a story about fear, power, and the kind of justice no HOA can escape. I'd always thought moving into this neighborhood would bring peace. The homes were clean, the lawns manicured, the lake sparkled in the morning sun. The HOA promised safety and order, the usual words you hear when they want you to believe you're moving into paradise. At first, things seemed fine. The monthly newsletters were filled with reminders about trash pickup, landscaping rules, and barbecues. It all felt harmless, almost quaint, but beneath the polished surface, there was an undercurrent of control. Letters would appear in mailboxes about trivial violations. Neighbors whispered about fines that seemed to come from nowhere. And the security patrol, a single man hired by the HOA, carried himself like a sheriff in a Wild West town no one asked for. He cruised the streets in his old SUV with security stenciled on the side, glaring at anyone who so much as left a garbage bin out too long. My daughter, Rachel, had just moved back home temporarily after a long deployment. She was calm, sharp, and quiet about her work. But there was no mistaking the discipline she carried in her every step. She ran at dawn, trained at dusk, and carried herself with the kind of authority that only came from years of handling dangerous situations. To me, she was still my little girl, but I knew what she was capable of. The HOA didn't. One evening, Rachel parked her car slightly outside the line of our driveway. It was late, and she was tired from a long day of training new recruits. To the HOA security officer, though, this was grounds for confrontation, and not the polite kind. It started small. He knocked on the door and demanded Rachel move her car. His tone was sharp, aggressive, like he had authority that no one had given him. Rachel, calm as always, told him she'd move it in the morning since it wasn't blocking traffic. That answer didn't sit well. The next day, a violation notice appeared in our mailbox, followed by another at the end of the week. Each one carried fines that seemed ridiculous. Rachel ignored them. After all, she wasn't on the lease or deed. It was my home, not hers. But this man, drunk on imagined power, wasn't going to let it go. He began patrolling by our house more often, slowing down whenever Rachel stepped outside. His eyes followed her, his hand always close to the weapon strapped on his hip, a weapon no HOA security had any right to carry. The neighborhood began to notice. Some whispered that the HOA had gone too far. Others avoided us, fearing they'd be the next target. The board did nothing. They liked having a guard dog patrolling the streets, intimidating homeowners into submission. Then came the night everything exploded. Rachel had gone out for a late run, her usual route around the lake. As she returned, sweat dripping, she slowed near the curb to catch her breath. That's when the SUV screeched to a halt. The guard jumped out, hand already on his holstered gun. "You can't jog here after hours," he barked. Rachel raised an eyebrow, calm as ever. "There's no rule against it." His face twisted. "Don't get smart with me. Show me ID, now." Rachel shook her head. "You're not law enforcement. You don't get to demand that." And then, the moment that froze the air around them, he pulled the gun, pointed it straight at her chest. The street went silent. Porch lights flickered on. Neighbors peeked through blinds. And I stood frozen at the window, my heart slamming in my chest. But Rachel didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She took a single step closer, her eyes locked on his. Her voice, low and steady, cut through the night like steel. "Put it down, now." He laughed nervously, but his grip on the gun faltered. "Don't tell me what to do. I'm the security here. I have authority." Rachel's hand went to her pocket. In one smooth motion, she pulled out her credentials, the gold badge of an FBI tactical commander gleaming under the streetlight. Gasps rippled through the neighbors watching from their windows. "You just pointed a firearm," she said, her tone sharp, commanding, every syllable echoing like a judge's gavel at a federal agent. His face went pale. "You've committed aggravated assault with a deadly weapon," she continued. "You're done." Before he could react, Rachel moved with precision. With one swift maneuver, she disarmed him, twisted his wrist, and had him on the ground in seconds. His gun clattered onto the pavement. Blue and red lights filled the street moments later. But it wasn't his SUV, it was the sheriff's department, called in by Rachel the second she saw him pull the weapon. Officers swarmed, took his statements, and cuffed the very man who thought he ruled the neighborhood. Neighbors stepped out now, murmuring, some even cheering quietly. The HOA president showed up minutes later, face red, sputtering excuses about how our security was only doing his job. Rachel stood tall, her badge visible, her presence uncheckable. "No," she said, loud enough for every neighbor to hear. "Your security officer pulled a gun on an unarmed civilian. That's not doing his job. That's a crime." The following week, the neighborhood buzzed with the fallout. The HOA board scrambled to distance themselves from the man they had empowered. They claimed they had no idea he was carrying a firearm, though everyone knew they'd encouraged his intimidation tactics. The guard faced charges for aggravated assault, impersonation of law enforcement, and unlawful use of a firearm. He was stripped of any right to carry a weapon and faced prison time. The HOA was slapped with lawsuits, investigations, and a wave of residents demanding resignations. For once, the power shifted. Neighbors who had lived in fear began speaking up. Stories poured out about harassment, bogus fines, and intimidation. The board's carefully crafted image crumbled. And Rachel, she didn't gloat, she didn't brag. She simply told me, "Dad, this is why training matters. Fear makes people dangerous, but discipline keeps you in control." The HOA learned the hard way that power games don't work when the person you're threatening has real authority and the law on their side. As for me, I realized something else. Sometimes justice doesn't come in a courtroom or a fine. Sometimes it walks right up to the danger, looks it in the eye, and says, "You picked the wrong person." So the next time the HOA talks about safety and order, the neighborhood remembers the night their security pointed a gun and the woman who showed them what real security looks like.